Why Europe was built without air conditioning. This June, people across Europe are asking the same hot, sweaty question. Why do so many homes still not have air conditioning? The question feels simple when your bedroom is warm at midnight, your train station feels like an oven, and your city keeps telling people to avoid the afternoon sun. But the answer is not just weather, it is architecture, it is energy, it is history, money, culture, and a continent full of buildings designed for a version of summer that is disappearing. So why was Europe built without air conditioning? Start with the old job of a European home. For much of the continent, the main problem was not escaping heat, it was surviving cold. Northern and Western Europe were shaped by long, damp winters, expensive fuel, and buildings that had to hold warmth inside for months at a time. What does a house become when its main enemy is February? It gets thick walls, it gets radiators, it gets curtains, shutters, chimneys, insulation, and smaller windows than you might expect in a hotter climate. In many places, comfort meant keeping heat in, not pushing heat out. That design logic shaped apartments, schools, offices, and public buildings for generations. Air conditioning came from a different story. Modern mechanical cooling began in 1902 when Willis Carrier built a system in Brooklyn to control humidity for a printing company. At first, it was not about chilled living rooms. It was about paper, ink, machines, and keeping industrial air stable. Only later did cooling become something ordinary people expected in homes. In the United States, that household shift accelerated after the Second World War. Suburbs expanded. New homes, cars, malls, and offices were built around cooled indoor air. Many buildings use ducts, which are hollow channels that move air through walls and ceilings. If a house already has ducts, central air can fit into the building more easily. Europe developed differently. Many homes used hot water radiators, not forced air heating. A radiator warms a room by circulating hot water through metal panels, so it does not leave behind a hidden air highway for cooling. If your apartment has no ducts, central air is not a small upgrade. It can mean cutting into walls, lowering ceilings, changing wiring, and getting permission from landlords, neighbors, or preservation authorities. Where does the cooling system go in a building that never made space for it? That is why the comparison can be misleading. In some countries, air conditioning was built into the modern housing dream. In much of Europe, it has to be retrofitted, which means added later to a building that was not designed for it. A retrofit can work, but it is usually more expensive, more visible, and more complicated than installing cooling during construction. Now picture an old apartment block in Paris, Vienna, Berlin, Milan, or Prague. The windows may open inward. The facade may be protected because it is historic. The courtyard may be narrow. The roof may be shared. And the electrical panel may not be ready for several cooling machines running at once. A split air conditioner needs an indoor unit and an outdoor compressor. That outdoor box has to dump heat somewhere. What happens when every cool room sends warmth into the same tight street? That is the basic trick of air conditioning. It does not create cold. It moves heat. A refrigerator pulls heat out of the food compartment and releases it into your kitchen. An air conditioner pulls heat out of your room and releases it outside. So a city full of cooled apartments can also become a city full of warm exhaust. This is where comfort becomes health. Extreme heat is not just annoying. It strains the heart, dries the body, disrupts sleep, worsens breathing problems, and becomes especially dangerous for older people, infants, outdoor workers, and people living alone. Hot nights are a major problem because your body loses the cool recovery period it normally gets after a hot day. What if the bedroom itself becomes the hazard? Europe learned this brutally in 2003. A severe summer heat wave caused more than 70,000 excess deaths across the continent, according to research associated with Jean-Marie Robin and other European demographers. France was hit especially hard. That disaster changed heat alerts, emergency planning, and the habit of checking on isolated older neighbors. But it did not instantly rebuild Europe's homes. Buildings change slowly. The European Commission says most EU buildings were built before 2000, and many perform poorly by modern energy standards. That means a large share of today's homes were designed before today's heat risk felt normal. You can replace a phone in a few years. You cannot replace a continent's housing stock that fast. The climate is moving faster than the walls. World Meteorological Organization have described Europe as the fastest warming continent, warming at more than twice the global average in recent decades. That does not mean every place gets hotter in the same way. It means the old averages that shape building habits are drifting away from daily life. A few degrees can sound small, but a small shift in the average creates a much bigger jump in extremes. Days that used to be rare become common. Nights that used to cool down stay sticky and dangerous. What happens when buildings designed for yesterday's rare heat meet tomorrow's normal summer? You get top-floor apartments that trap warmth. You get schools sending children home early. You get hospitals protecting patients, railways slowing trains, and cities opening cooling centers. You also get a cultural argument because people are not only debating machines, they are debating what kind of adaptation feels reasonable. Some people see air conditioning as basic safety, others see it as wasteful. Both instincts come from something real. Cooling can save lives during dangerous heat, but mass cooling also raises electricity demand during the hottest hours of the year, when power systems can already be stressed. A peak is the highest moment of use, when the most devices are on at the same time. If millions of households add cooling, the grid may need stronger wires, more transformers, more generation, and better planning. Is the solution still a solution if it worsens the pressure that created the problem? That is the air conditioning dilemma. The answer is not simply yes or no. A smarter cooling future starts before the machine turns on. Shade matters, trees matter, external shutters matter because they stop sunlight before it enters the glass. White roofs, awnings, night ventilation, and insulation can all reduce indoor heat when they are used together. Why cool a room after the sun has already cooked it? Insulation is often misunderstood. It is not only for winter. It slows heat movement, so it can help keep heat out during the day and keep cooled air in when cooling is used. But insulation without shade can also trap solar heat inside. The real system is not one product. It is shading, ventilation, insulation, behavior, and mechanical cooling working together. Older European buildings sometimes already contain passive cooling ideas. Passive means the feature works without much energy. Thick stone walls can slow heat. Shutters can block sun. Courtyards can guide airflow. Mediterranean towns used narrow streets and pale surfaces long before electricity existed. But passive cooling has limits when hot days pile up and nights stay warm. That is why mechanical cooling is becoming part of public health, not just private comfort. A wealthy homeowner can add a heat pump, shutters, insulation, and pay the electric bill. A renter may not be allowed to change the building. A pensioner may fear the cost of using a unit. When safe cooling becomes necessary, lack of cooling becomes risk. Who gets to stay cool first? The future will be uneven. Some homes will get split units. Some will get reversible heat pumps, which are basically air conditioners that can run backward to heat in winter and cool in summer. Some streets will get trees, shade sails, cool roofs, and public cooling spaces. Some cities like Paris are expanding district cooling, where chilled water moves through underground pipes to cool many buildings from a shared system. The counterintuitive twist is that Europe was not simply foolish for having less air conditioning. For much of the 20th century, the choice matched the climate, buildings, energy prices, and expectations of the time. The problem is that the climate changed faster than the built environment. A continent designed around conserving heat now has to learn how to reject heat. So when the next heat wave makes everyone ask why Europe does not just get air conditioning, you are no longer looking at one missing machine. You are looking at old walls, old wiring, winter-first design, energy trade-offs, public health, and a new climate pressing against buildings that were made for another one. Europe was built to stay warm. Now it has to learn how to stay cool.